I'm in the middle of a road somewhere? Like, what the? And then it all was like, in my head it all came together. Like, I said to myself, you've been in a car accident. July 23rd, 1998. I was going from work to meet my boyfriend to buy an air conditioner. And I was late. I was like at least 20 minutes late. I was pissed off. I was stressed out.
Why?
Because I had to work late again. Like, I couldn't even have one date where I could get out on time, you know, trying to leave the office and just, people running after me like, oh, wait, we have to do this, we have to do that. And I'm like, I can't today. Like, let somebody else deal with it. And it was really hard, but to separate myself, but I did. And I walked out the door, and I got in the car, and I don't even think I lit a cigarette, because I was smoking in those days. But I didn't even have time. Like, I just said, let me just get there. And I never ever left that early, so I didn't know how much traffic there was. If I had known, I probably would have gone out the other exit where there's a traffic light. But in this case, like, rush hour, I didn't know that it was impossible to make a left-hand turn across, 4-lane busy highway. And I had a lot of trouble making that left turn, and I think I just gunned it and tried to make it, but I didn't. So, this is what people tell me because I completely blanked out. I have no memory up until, like, I woke up later, but I guess I made a left turn, and this big old Oldsmobile from, like, the 1970s. It was, old-fashioned American steel cars, like, really heavy. It T-boned me on my driver's side door. It was probably driving at 50 miles per hour, and it smushed me, crushed me. Luckily, I was not wearing my seatbelt. So,
Okay, you were not wearing your seatbelt?
no.
You were not wearing your seatbelt? And that was lucky? Why?
I know it's the law, and actually, so I had gotten 2 seatbelt tickets on that same street within, like, the past couple years. 2 $75 seatbelt tickets for not wearing my seatbelt. Did that stop me? No. I still hated wearing my seatbelt. I still don't like wearing it. And that actually saved my life.
What?
Yep. Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
How? How did it save your life not wearing a seatbelt?
Well, I was pretty crushed as it is, but if I were strapped into that seat, I would have been completely crushed by that car. Because when I woke up in the passenger seat, like, thank God I got bounced to the passenger seat. And my head hit the window, so I got knocked out, like, instantly. All I remember is like waking up and blinking. Blink, 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 blink. And I looked to my right, where I turned my head, and I'm like, man, I'm tired. Like, must be taking a nap. And there's all these people, like, staring in the window, looking at me. And I was like, what the fuck are you looking at? Like, take a picture, it lasts longer. This is all in my head because I couldn't speak. But I didn't know that I wasn't speaking at the time. And I was just like, what the fuck? There was all these people. Like, there must have been like 10 people, like, peering in the window at me. And, I ignored them. And I just kept, like, blinking. Blink, 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 blink. And then I see the dashboard come into focus in front of me. And I'm like, well, that's funny. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And I'm like, oh, it must be in Eddie's car. And then I see the Pontiac thing there. I'm like, no, this is my car. Like, why am I sitting in the passenger seat of my own car? And I'm like, oh, well, he must have driven me to the store and he went in to buy a pack of cigarettes because we were both smokers at the time. Anyway, so I was getting sleepy. It's like, oh, he's really in there for a long time. And blink, 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 blink. And I look up at like 12 o'clock and the windshield was shattered. And all I could think of was my job where I worked next to the golf course. I was like, oh, those damn golf balls. I think I got hit by a golf ball. And then I look over there at like, no, then I look down at like 7 o'clock and my leg was over by the pedals. My leg was in the driver's seat, but my body was in the passenger seat. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I'm like, I must be all sprawled out taking a nice nap here. And then I look at 9 o'clock, and now I'm like, I'm really puzzled. I'm like, why is there a bumper? Why is there a car inside my car? And it still didn't hit me. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I look up at like 10, 11 o'clock, which was straight up the road through the windshield. Like, where am I? And then I saw the dotted, the stripes in the middle of the road, you know, like, I'm like, I'm in the middle of a road somewhere? I'm like, what the? And then it all was like, in my head it all came together. Like, I said to myself, you've been in a car accident. Like, oh, wow. Like, well, are you hurt? I'm asking myself these questions, you know. Am I hurt? And then I'd like scan my body mentally. And then I think my back is broken. And then all of a sudden, pain! Oh my God, I was completely overwhelmed with pain. Just stay awake, stay awake. They say, you know, you're not supposed to lose consciousness, right? So try to stay awake, stay awake. And like, I can't stay awake. I can't stay awake. I'm falling, I'm dying. Well, okay, it's okay. You've had a good life. Goodbye, world. And this white light came and just took me and pulled me into the dashboard of the car, like under the dashboard. Just very gently. So gently. Just, and there I went. And I swear I died. And then the next thing I know, they're pulling me out of the car. I don't know how much time passed, because now the people are gone and it's just ambulance people, like ambulance guy. Mr. Paramedic has got his... And I remember trying to scream because it hurt so bad and nothing came out. Because my lung was collapsed and I couldn't speak. All my ribs were broken. My chest was crushed. My pelvis was broken. And this leg was broken, like in several places here. And I had ruptured my spleen, liver, kidney, ovaries. Um, but there was no blood. I didn't see any blood. Yeah, all my scars are just from the surgeries, not from the actual injuries.
All 9 ribs were broken?
Yeah, I'll show you my x-rays. Yeah. With rib bones in my lung. So they had to pull out the rib bones. And that's why I still have all this pain today, because of all the nerve damage. So I have one vocal cord that is paralyzed. So when I speak, like I have to just use my other vocal cord to speak, and it's like there's an imbalance, and so like my voice is scratchy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the things that they can do. They put a camera down my throat, and they could see how it doesn't move when I talk, like just a little bit. Okay, so I have 2 things that stand out. One was the rib surgeon, who told me that he had only done 7 of these surgeries in the past. That this was before the surgery. And I was like half conscious, and I was all drugged up, laying in the bed with, broken pelvis. And they had fixed my leg at that point because they needed to stabilize my leg and my pelvis, my core first. And then the ribs were like the next surgery. So this is where we are. And
Okay, so you have the accident, and then they take you to surgery, and they replace a bone with a piece of metal.
yeah, they actually put it inside the bone.
They put the piece of metal inside the bone?
Yeah, they went inside the bone. You can see it on the x-ray, how the bone is still there, but the rod was like inside. Our bones are actually hollow. They're not solid bone, which I learned. The inside of the bone is filled with like spongy stuff, and they suck it out to make room, and they put the rod inside the bone. And that keeps the bone from bending so it can heal around the rod.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's that thing?
That's, yeah.
So that thing was inside your bone?
Yes. Yeah, and I was getting pissed. I was like waiting because my ribs fucking hurt,
Right.
And I don't know if this doctor was playing golf or what, but
We're talking about how many ribs?
9. Yeah, all my ribs on the left. Yeah, my chest was concave. It was caved in. As you can imagine, laying on this bed for 5 days fucking hurt, and I couldn't breathe. Well, they had a tube for breathing. So I don't know if this physician was waiting to get my consent because I expressed hesitation when he told me he had only done 7 of these procedures in his whole career. And I was like, that doesn't sound too good. And I remember saying, well, do I really need this surgery? Because I think he was telling me they were going to cut a flap and then lift it up. And it sounded like really bad. I don't know why they thought that I had judgment. I was clearly not able to make decisions, but they were waiting for me to say yes to the surgery.
And so they waited 5 days to proceed because they wanted your...
I think so. Yeah, because I think I finally gathered that much from the nurses, and I couldn't eat. You're not supposed to eat before surgery. So they didn't feed me for 5 days. And I was laying in the bed. I'm hungry. I'm in pain. I'm miserable. Now, the accident was on a Thursday. So I remember I waited, and it was like the weekend. I'm like, where are they? Where is this doctor? Why aren't they operating? And I would ask the nurse. Oh, I didn't even know if she could understand me because I couldn't barely speak. I remember that Monday morning, I got pissed. And I said, give me the phone. And somebody handed me the phone, and somehow I got the phone number of the doctor's office. And I called, and I got his secretary answered the phone, and I said who I was. I said, I am calling from my hospital bed. And if I don't get my rib surgery to fix my ribs today, I am going to eat. I threatened them by saying I was going to eat. And I had the surgery the same day. Isn't that ridiculous?
You had your lung collapsed for 5 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you recovered it.
Not completely. No.
Not completely?
I lost a lot of function. So, yeah. I've had some nerve testing done. I have 20% of nerve and there's these little things in the nerves called axons, something like that, axions. I have 20% left. So I lost 80%. That's why I can't feel. If somebody could poke me with a pin, I won't feel it. So I had a ruptured spleen, liver, kidneys, my reproductive organs somewhere, because like they told me that I was on my period and I wasn't. So that blood was coming from, and that was the only obvious blood. But everything was internal, and these organs were swollen so much. My sister told me my belly looked like an ass or something, and I was completely like puffed out, swollen. I looked like she said my skin was so tight, it looked like I was gonna pop, like burst. That's how swollen my body was. All I remember was, being in so much pain. I was in the ICU, intensive care unit, and for some reason they had me laying. The nurses had rotated me, and she had me laying on my front, which was excruciating. I don't think she had read my chart, because I could hear everything, even though I couldn't speak. I heard her come in, her heels, like clunk, 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 like she was a loud, obnoxious, unhappy person. And she started bitching about how she had to work a double, she didn't get enough sleep, and like, I don't want to hear this, okay? I'm like dying, I'm fighting for my life here. And she turned me without, she couldn't have possibly read my chart, because she didn't have time. She just like walked in and started fucking moving me. And she put me on my front, and I was in so much pain. I could not even cry out because I didn't have it. There was no pipsqueak voice even left. There was like nothing. And I was laying there for I don't know how many hours. And I was trying to say, like, my ribs are broken. Like, you can't put me in this position. My ribs are broken. You fucking bitch. This is what I'm saying in my head. And I don't know how many hours passed, and then somebody came and turned me again, where I could finally speak a little bit. And I think I said, did you know my ribs are broken? And they were like, what? No. And then somebody looked at my chart, and they were like, oh, like, we just fucked this patient. And so somebody realized that they shouldn't have put me in that position. And anyway, fast forward a little bit, I asked for a notebook and a pen, and I started keeping a record. And I got her name, and I had the date. And, I mean, you could barely read my handwriting. But later on, I got her fired. I wrote a letter, and I got her fired. That was the worst suffering of everything. A lot of things come close, but that was like my soul, like being so helpless and in pain like that for so long. I mean, I can like just imagine like prisoners of wars that get kicked with broken ribs and have to lay there in a, like the I don't know, or a cage, like in Vietnam when the Viet Cong would cage the POWs. That's the only thing I could think of that would be comparable because I was captive. Dude, I couldn't fucking move. I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. In fact, I remember like holding my breath because breathing hurt too much. And I have PTSD from that still. Like, pick out the bone fragments from inside my lung, try and reform the ribs with those fragments, and then they held the fragments together with the plates. So if you look at the x-ray, there's like groups of 2 screws, because those 2 screws is what's holding, with a little plate, those breaks. So there's a break in between like each pair of screws, and you can see each break on the x-ray. It's really cool. I'll show you. I have them. But yeah, they told me that they cut like a horseshoe shaped flap in my chest, and they were going to lift it up to expose all 9 ribs. One of them they couldn't reach. I was under anesthesia for like 5 hours, and they didn't want to leave me under any longer because it would have taken even more time to do this one rib that still sticks out. So they fixed 8 of the 9. Like when I woke up in the post-op room, immediately I had just like someone was sticking a knife under my shoulder blade. It was so bad. It was pain broke through even the anesthesia was still, with me. Like my ribs didn't hurt, but this one spot under my shoulder blade, which was new, it was from the incision. It was a new pain that developed because of where they cut through my muscle. It was bad luck. So what I learned was what they cut was not just, skin and tissue. They cut my long thoracic nerve, which is one of the major nerves that serves your upper body. Long thoracic nerve. If he was going to fix my ribs, he had to cut through that nerve. And because I was only, 33 years old, young enough that I, had potential to heal. But it didn't. It didn't. So, I guess he didn't know that at the time, but, it's funny. Just a couple weeks ago, I went to look him up because you can get these ID cards now that shows you have metal implants, but the paperwork has to be filled out by the surgeon who did it. And I Googled him. He was killed by a car hit on bicycle in front of his office. He was killed. Yeah. And there was a picture of him and everything. And I hated him because, and I can't believe this happened to him. It's like I wished it on him or something. Because he fucking hurt me, right? And then I would go back to him for all these like follow-up visits, and I would say, but doctor, my ribs hurt. And he looked at me like this. He goes, so? Just like that, like really snotty. Like my Rod Stewart story. I'll tell you that one another time. Super snotty. He goes, yeah, so?
Rod Stewart was naughty to you?
Oh yeah, that's another story.
Okay, alright.
Yeah, Rod Stewart was a total asshole. Total asshole.
You didn't think he was sexy.
I ripped up his autograph in his face and I threw it at him.
Oh my god. Okay, well.
We're getting off topic here.
That's all for today. Thank you.
When a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps. When a bone breaks, it snaps.
All right, boys and girls, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have a sing-along. Break up into groups, boys to the right, girls to the left. And you already know the words, so 1, 2, 3.
And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps.
Wow, kids. That sounds really good. Your parents should be proud of you. You know what? I want to hear that again. Let's do that one more time. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps. And when a bone breaks, it snaps.
So freaking cute. Look at you. Look at you. You're so cute. Look at you. I'm a little kitty. Yeah. Oh, I'm purring. Oh, roly poly.